Hello friends, welcome to Feeding Artists. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to use Adobe Premiere Pro. This is meant to be kind of a beginner's tutorial if you're not entirely sure how to use the program yet, but I will be going over some slightly more advanced techniques as well. They're really not that difficult to grasp, but they're things that you might not find in every single beginner's tutorial. Additionally, I just want to say that I'm showing you guys my own personal workflow. There's so many different ways that you can use Premiere. This is just what I have found was the easiest for me. So with that out of the way, let's dive into Premiere. All right, so you're just gonna press New Project, Start New Project, put it wherever. I'm just gonna call it Premiere. Now I'm gonna start off in the assembly window. And the first thing you wanna do is import your footage. So the way that I import is I just go to my folder, just find whatever footage that I need. That's going to import over here into the assembly window. And the reason that I import this specific way is because some of the other methods of importing will kind of like mix up your footage so it doesn't come in numerical order, which is super annoying if you have like just a lot of footage. So if you do it this way, where you just find the footage separately and then drag and drop it in, it will always come in the order that you shot it. So I would recommend importing this way specifically. So from here, I'm gonna wanna take my footage from the original project bin into my timeline, which is this area right here. And the way I'm gonna do that is I'll pick whatever clip I wanna start with. So let's say we'll start with this one, right? And I just double clicked it and then it's gonna come up over here. This is like the preview window so you can see what you're actually looking at. And then you can kind of scroll right here with this little playhead if you just click and drag it to kind of see your footage. But that's not gonna give you any audio. If you want to have audio with your footage, you're gonna have to actually press the play button or the space bar. And then you can see the audio levels right here are working, so you can see the audio now. So anyway, this clip is bad, so we're not using it, but I'm gonna go to the next one. Second time around was good for me. Start tracking around here, I can just kind of see that visually. So what I want to do now is I want to mark in and out points. And so those are pretty self-explanatory. It's basically going to mark the point where your clip starts and the point where your clip ends. So if I want this to be my end point, I just need to press I on my keyboard. And as you can see, it sort of lights up this area here. So this would be the amount of like my clip that's going into the timeline, if that makes sense. And so I want to mark an out point as well for when I stop talking, which looks like it's around here. So I'm just going to press the O key for out. And then from there, I'm just going to click and drag this into my timeline. And so now you can see the clip is here. And if I want to zoom in, I can just go to this little bar down here, just kind of mess with the circle, zoom in and out. And you can see there's this huge period of time where I'm not talking right in the beginning of the clip. So I want to cut that out. So if you go to the end right here, you can see that little like arrow thing pops up. So then you can basically just click and drag it to where you want. Usually I'll mark it with my playhead where I want the clip to end. And by the way, right now I have snapping on. If you're not familiar with the concept of snapping, it basically just, it'll kind of take the clip and make sure it goes to where you have your playhead set or another clip or a line of audio, depending on how your project looks. And it'll kind of try to keep things aligned for you. Sometimes that could be annoying. Sometimes you don't want it to be aligned or it keeps snapping to the wrong area and it can get super frustrating. So you could just press S on your keyboard to turn snapping on and off, or you can go to this little like magnet button up here and just press that. But for right now, I'm gonna keep snapping on. So that's the first way that I can you can sort of move around your clip like that. Another way to do it is to use this razor tool right here, which is also gonna be C on your keyboard. And then you could just press where you want it to cut. You can also cut it, random places. I want to cut it there for some reason. And then I'm just pressing V to get back to my selection tool, which is kind of going to be your default a lot of the times. And then you can just delete that if you want. If I want to move this back to the front, again, I could just click and drag and move it over there. Or I could just click this empty area and press delete, and it will move it forwards for me. Another really useful tool that kind of goes along with these timeline tools is this guy, the Track Select Forward tool. It's A on your keyboard. And what that basically does is it will just move everything from where you start clicking It'll just like move all of it, which looks kind of insignificant with just this one clip. Say I have these clips and I want to put something right in the middle here. So I can just take this and just move all of those forward rather than having to like select it like that. Again, kind of insignificant with just this small amount of clips, but once you have a lot, this tool becomes really useful. And it also works if I have, oops. It also works if I have stuff like stacked like that. It'll still take all of it. It's just from the point where you click. So that's something that's really useful for kind of the future, not for this little thing I'm doing right now, but it will be useful if you're planning on making larger films. So something to note. So next I want to go over how to sync your audio. A lot of times if you're recording, you might just have audio that kind of comes with your clip. Like right now you can see that like I'm saying stuff and it's there. But if you're recording with an external mic or you're doing a music video, you will probably have to sync up your audio. So as you can see, I have audio clips up here. So this works the same way as the video where you have it in this window and then you can mark your in and out points again with I and with O. Click and drag it in just from your project bin over here. If you try to click and drag it from your preview window, it's just gonna move the playhead. It's not actually gonna drag the audio. So I'm just gonna zoom in a little bit. And you can also use these guys to zoom into the audio and the video. And you could also move around your windows, by the way. So if you just go to the ends and say, I want this to be bigger because I want to focus on my audio, I can move that. You can even move this to be like a little smaller. Move this around if you want to. And you can really customize your windows. And this is for all the different workspaces. Right now I'm just in assembly, but I will be going into the other ones a little bit. And if you ever move something and just like mess something up and you can't figure out how to get it back, the fix for that is if you go to Window and you go to Workspaces and reset to saved layout. This also happens, sometimes you'll be in a window and it'll just go black and you don't know what to do. That's a fix for that as well. Just like anything that happens visually in this program, like you should do that with, because it solves a lot of problems. But anyway, so I'm just gonna move that around. And the first thing you should try for syncing up audio is the synchronize tool that's actually within Premiere. So if I have my video clip selected, and then I'm just gonna also select my audio clip, I'm gonna right click, then I'm gonna go to, where is it? Synchronize, which is right here. I can press synchronize. And you're gonna wanna synchronize audio, so that's gonna try to match both of them up together. Track channel, you can kind of mess with this. Usually I only change that if it just doesn't work the first time. I'll just go from track 1 to track 2. Processing, and great, it worked. So the thing about the synchronize tool is it will match up your audio pretty much perfectly every single time, and it's very minimal effort. As you can see, I did that in about 2 seconds. The only problem with the synchronize tool is that it only works maybe 70% of the time. So it's definitely always worth trying because it's so simple, but if it doesn't work, you're just gonna have to synchronize your audio manually. And so the way to do that is just to kind of look at the waveforms, which you could see here and here, and just try to like match them up. A lot of people like to do the little like clap thing, so you can match that up as well. That's another method you could use. And then you have one specific audio spike that you can match things up with. But honestly, normally just in talking, your voice is going to create audio spikes naturally. So you can usually just find a point to match it up. So say if I wanted to use it like this point, say put this in and it was like way over here or something. So I could see, okay, like, you know, probably around like there, and then you just kind of zoom in, match it up too. But yeah, so basically you just go in and you just try to match up the waveforms if the synchronize tool doesn't work for you. And another just little tip for synchronizing your audio is if you kind of go in, I do this a lot, where if you're not sure if it matches up, you just listen to both of them at the same time, and you'll kind of hear if there's a delay to it. And another thing you can do is to just mute the track. So you press this little M and just kind of mute it on and off, and then hear from there if where like your one track cuts out, if the other one starts up in the same place or if it starts up in a different place. So I'm just gonna finish editing the rest of this, just laying things down and syncing up the audio, and then we'll get into the next little things that we have to do and go over. Okay, so now I have a really rough edit of this done. I'm gonna need to chop up this last clip here, but I can just do that on my own time, it's okay. But as you can probably see just by this clip and that clip, you could tell that the color is really off. So this one is a lot more blue than say this clip over here. So the next thing I'm gonna show you guys is how to color correct your footage. And this is just gonna be like where it is in the program more than like how to do it, because that would be a whole nother video on its own. But if you press this little button right here, this is the comparison view. So it's really useful for color correcting. You could basically set a reference, as you see reference over here. You could just find it. So if I want to put my first thing as a reference, I could just do that. And then current. So if I want to go over here to my blue, and as you can see, these look very different. And so to edit this, you're going to want to go to the color window, just right here. And I do generally just use the basic correction for most of my color correcting. If I'm doing color grading, I'll do other stuff. But just for color correction, you can usually just get by using the basic window. So for this, since my main problem is that this clip over here is blue, I can just mess with the temperature, try to get it to be less blue. So do something like that. Right now I put the exposure up a little. I basically just changed the setting on my light to get this so it would be like learning moment. But yeah, so for this I can pretty much just change the temperature, maybe change the tint tiny bit. That's not perfect, but as you can see, they're matching a little bit better now. So this is generally how you edit color, just in this window. And I would say if you're just doing basic color correction, just stick to the basic correction window. So another thing I want to show you is adjustment layers. And this is one of those things that generally people don't get taught right away, and I really don't know why, because they're so useful. So to get an adjustment layer, make sure that your project bin is selected no matter what window that you're in. So for the color window, it's down here. Then you're just gonna go to File, New, Adjustment Layer. And you just press OK. And so basically you can see this little black video that's created in the corner. And then you can drag it and you want to put it above the clip that you're adjusting. So let's say I want to adjust, or I can just adjust the whole thing. Normally adjustment layers I use for color grading my footage. So if I want to put some sort of filter over everything, I will just put an adjustment layer, just extend it so it's on top of everything. And then what I can do is say I want this to be like super pink for some reason. Then now everything's pink. You could see the reference photo and the regular, they're all pink. Or if I wanted to like completely desaturate it, maybe I want it to be black and white. Now everything's black and white. And so normally I do use the adjustment layers for color purposes. That's what I find them useful for. They can be used for other things as well, but normally I use them just for color grading, and I just put them over either my whole film or maybe certain parts of my film and kind of adjust it from there. So it's just an easy way to make big adjustments to everything that you're editing. So right now, I think my color looks okay, so I'm just gonna delete the adjustment layer because I don't want that like weird pink tint. So the next thing I wanna go over is how to make titles. So I'm just gonna grab the screen. I'm gonna change over to the effects window. So effects is good, obviously, for adding effects. It's also good if you need to do anything to your footage. So if I need to make it bigger, I can mess with the scale. If I need to like move it, I can mess with that. Again, not super useful when you just have like one clip, but if you're trying to say make a grid, you have 2 clips, being able to move your footage and scale your footage is like super helpful. So opacity, which will become useful, you can make things, you know, whatever. So all your clip controls are basically over here. But what I want to do right now is I want to make text. So to make some text, you go to the little type tool, which is down here, or you press T on your keyboard, and then you just press on your video, you can type whatever you want. So I'll type feeding artists, if I can spell. I can't, apparently. Now I just showed you guys the tools up here that are for scaling, positioning, stuff like that. You can use these tools on the text as well. However, I would recommend using the tools within the actual text bracket thing rather than just the general like this is your screen thing, if that makes any sense. When Premiere creates text, it's basically just creating an extra layer. As you can see, this little pink, it looks like the same as the adjustment layer. It's creating another layer of video, and on that layer of video is text. So you basically have, like, you have just here what's in the red, and that's what your text is, but it's really the whole video screen is your text. So if you use just these general vector motion things that are up here, it's going to basically be moving that entire screen rather than just moving around your text. And a lot of times that doesn't matter, but sometimes it does, and it's kind of like, that's one of those things you'll just figure out later. So it's just good to get in the habit of using the transform tools that are within the text and not within the whole video. So, and you also have other things you could do to the text. You could change the font. Maybe I want Old English for some reason. I don't know why I would want Old English. Maybe I want, I don't know, what's a fun font? I'm just gonna make it my default Feeding Artist font. So there you go, you have the font. And you could change, you know, just whatever text tools, stuff like that. If I wanna make it bigger, I could use this guy, make it bigger. Could change the color with the fill. These are all pretty standard, like, text editing things. Okay, let's say I'll go for like yellow or something. So the next thing I want to show you guys is how to use transitions. So these will be in the effects tab. Most likely, if you're transitioning, you're probably going to use either a cross dissolve or a dip to black. So let's say at the end of the video I want it to fade out. So I can just take this dip to black, just put it there, and you can adjust sort of the timing and stuff. And then as you see, the video just kind of fades out. So that's your dip to black transition. And then the cross dissolve, I can't type. Okay, right here, cross dissolve. Usually you'll put it in between clips so that you can kind of just like slowly get in between the two of them. So for a video like this, it looks really stupid and you definitely should not put a cross dissolve, but for some videos it could be nice, it could look artsy, and it's generally a pretty basic transition that still looks professional enough when you know when to use it and you're using it in the proper instances. Now the next thing I want to show you guys is keyframes, and this is one of those things that really, it takes a while normally before you're taught this in like traditional schooling and stuff for video, but it's really useful and it's a really simple concept. So I'm just going to show you, instead of my little dip to black thing, if I wanted to make my own and I wanted to try to control it myself better, what I normally would do for videos rather than just putting the pre-made transition is I'll just put keyframes on opacity. So basically what this does is I could press this little button right here for add or remove keyframe. And then I can go to the end, and I'm going to change my opacity to 0 because I want my end to be black, so it's going to be nothing. And then it'll just slowly fade, as you can see, which does the same as the transition, but I just find it easier to control yourself if you want it to be really long or really short. Again, you can kind of zoom in with these little arrows, and so I want like a really, really long transition. I can move that over there. And then it just goes really slowly. And you can control it that way. So basically the way keyframes work, your first keyframe is where whatever action you want to do starts, and then the last one is where the action you want to do ends. Another thing that this can work for is kind of animation and moving things around the screen. So if I went back to my text layer, maybe I want to, I don't know, maybe I want to scale that and I want to have it just like grow as it comes on the screen. So I can make a keyframe on scale. You press the little stopwatch to make a keyframe if you don't already have the little like diamond-y thing next to it. So I'll press the stopwatch. I'm going to start my scale at 0. And then once I get to this point, maybe I want it to fully scale, so I'll go to 100. And so then you could see it just kind of get bigger and like go up. So something like that is useful if you want to do any sort of animations, you want to move anything around, and also to change opacity and just anything that you want to change over time, you can do with keyframes. Okay, so the last thing you do after your video is all done and edited, which mine is not right now, but it will be. Once your video is done, you're going to need to export it. So just to quickly go over some of the export settings, you're going to go to File, then Export Media. and you wait for the little window to come up. You're gonna want your format to be H.264 most of the time. That's kind of the standard video format. It's good for posting on YouTube, Vimeo, and stuff like that. Preset, normally just high bit rate is a good one. It works fine. Output name, so this is where you're going to decide where your video is going to output, what it's gonna be called. You can click on it if you wanna change it. Just do it over here. We'll call it like test. All right. Export video, export audio. So you can also export other things besides your video. If you just want the video and you want to do your audio on your own, you can obviously uncheck export audio, and that'll just give you the video. Or if you just want the audio, a lot of times I'll export that so that I can edit it in another software for noise removal or anything like that. So in that case, you would uncheck export video and then just make sure that your format's correct. So if I was doing audio, I'd probably want like waveform audio, then I can export it that way. But for video, we're just gonna do H.264, and we have the settings back. Everything else should generally be good if you're just exporting just like a regular video. One more thing to note is just to make sure that your source range is the entire sequence. Because sometimes you'll have in and out points marked on your timeline and you'll kind of forget about them. It usually defaults to sequence in and out. That's not always what you want. So just make sure that you're exporting your entire sequence, unless there's some reason that you don't want to and you just want part of the sequence. And then from there, you can just press export. And it'll just do its thing. It'll take, some time depending on how long your video is. And so there you go. Now you have your video and it's done, it's exported, it's edited to your content. So now you can just go to the file and watch it. So that is the end of my video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a ton about how to use Adobe Premiere Pro. At this point in time, you should be seeing some text right here on the screen. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing. I'll be making a Premiere Pro Part 2 video pretty soon where I'll be going over some other more advanced topics and tools that you can find within Premiere. If there's anything specific you would like to learn, please leave a comment below. I'll either incorporate it into my next video or I might end up making a special topics video on it if it's a bit more advanced. And with that, thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Hey guys, so when I was editing this video, I realized I forgot to mention some things, so I'm just gonna go over those now. First of all, using hotkeys is super important. I went over some of the timeline ones already, so I'm just gonna give you a brief little refresher before I get into some of the ones that I missed. So your main little select tool is gonna be the V key. The little razor tool is gonna be your C. And most of the time when you're editing, you're gonna be going back and forth between those two. So those are like really important to know. And then also A is the one that moved like everything. Just a little example of that. Now that I have this like big timeline, since you couldn't really see it before, say I wanted to like grab all that stuff and then it's moving everything, which is useful. So that's the A key. So if I'm editing and I want to see this video in a bigger window, what I can do is just hover my cursor over the screen and then press the tilde key, and that will put it into this kind of full screen mode. And that also works for any of the other windows. So if I wanted to say put my timeline full screen, I could do that and then I don't need to look at the other windows. Normally I just use it for the playback window. But it is useful. And another kind of variation of that is if you press Control tilde, that will give you like an actual full screen, like if you were watching the video on like YouTube or just playing it back on your computer or whatever. I personally just like using tilde, so then I can also like mess with the playhead and scrub through the video, which you won't be able to do in full screen mode, but it is an option that is there if you want it. Another hotkey that I actually kind of just figured out like while I was editing this video is the backslash key. So if you press that, it'll basically give you your whole timeline. So then if I'm like over here and I want to get back to something in the middle, then I can like easily go here and then press backslash again, and it'll take me right into that spot that I selected, and it'll be like closer up. So that's just faster than having to like manually like zoom all the way out and then like pick what you want and then like zoom all the way back in. You can just press the little backslash key and it'll kind of automatically zoom in and out for you. So another thing is your little key commands. So like left, right, up, and down. If you go left and right, it'll kind of take you frame by frame forwards or frame by frame backwards. And you can also hold it down and it will kind of like move for you, again, like slower than if you were just to scrub through it yourself. And then if you use the up and down keys, it will basically take you to the nearest cut. So if I press the up key, it will take me back to the nearest cut. And that's across all levels. So as you can see, I have multiple like video levels in this timeline right now. So it's not taking me back to the first cut in my first like selected video that's on the screen right now. It's just taking me to the first cut that exists, which is actually for the recording that is above this selected video. And same thing, if I press the down key, it's gonna take me to the next cut like forwards rather than the one that's backwards. So that's really useful if you have a lot of clips and you're just trying to navigate your timeline, makes things faster. All of these keyboard shortcuts are obviously just there to make things faster for you, and they'll become pretty natural when you're editing. That's, I think, kind of why I almost forgot to include some of these things, because they're just things that I am so used to doing that I didn't even think to like put out there and include. So another thing that can become problematic in Premiere is sometimes your audio inputs aren't correct. So I'm just going to show you how to fix that. This problem would normally come if you're trying to play something and for whatever reason it's not playing and you're not getting any audio. So the fix for that is if you go to Edit, Preferences, and there's a bunch here. You can kind of pick whatever because it'll just take you to the window. But for audio specific issues, you pick Audio Hardware. All right, and then you can see the default input and the default output. So normally output's gonna be like your main issue that sometimes happens. So right now I have headphones in, I also have my laptop speakers. If you were to hook this up to like a TV or anything like that, you might have a different sound system for that as well. So this is the way that you can just change that. Also, if you ever unplug and replug your headphones, sometimes it will get messed up and all you have to do, again, is go to this window. Sometimes you have to just re-select headphones again and then just press OK. And then you should be fine and the audio should work. So another thing that I didn't go over is grouping and ungrouping. So as you can see, if I select this video clip right here, it also selects the audio for me. And that's because those are grouped together. The default for video clips you're putting in is that the video and the audio are going to be grouped. But sometimes you don't want the audio. Maybe I just want this green audio track down here, which is my externally recorded audio. And so if I just want to completely get rid of this audio rather than just muting it, which the mute key's right here, solo's right here, if you ever need that. So if I ever want to just get rid of this audio, you just need to click on the clip and then right click and press Unlink. And so now you can see that these two are separate. If I wanted to just delete this audio, I can just press the delete key. Additionally, if I wanted to just add my external audio to this clip, which could be useful if you just move clips around a lot. So see, if I move this, this audio doesn't come with it. And so that will mess up your synchronization, which could be super annoying. So I can just highlight both of them, right click and click group, and then they'll all move together. And likewise, if I wanted to get those to not be connected anymore, I could just press ungroup and that will make them separate. But this will still stay the same because these two are linked together. So you would have to unlink in order to separate those. So the last thing that I forgot to mention are the title safe zones. So if you're not familiar with title safe zones, basically these are just guidelines as to where you should put your titles so that they don't get cut off by the screen, because sometimes if you're trying to play your video on like a TV screen, it might have a different crop factor than your laptop. So we just want to make sure that all the titles are super readable, and that is where the title safe zones come in. So to get your title safe zones, you're just going to need to right click on your video screen, and then you're going to click Safe Margins. And as you see, there's these two boxes here. And so the reason that there's two boxes is basically the first like interior box is where you should put your titles, and that's like the title safe zone. And then the outside box is called the action safe zone. And basically what that means is if you're animating your titles, or if you have like photos or anything like that, this applies to that as well. If you're animating these things, you can make it like animate to this outer box. But if it's just going to be still, you should try to keep it within the inner box. So I think that's everything that I forgot to mention originally. I hope that all made sense to you and just the tutorial in general made sense to you. And if you have any other questions about editing, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. My Instagram is @feedingartists. I'll leave a link in the description below if you wanted to click that as well. Thank you again for watching and good luck with your edits.